5 soldiers killed in another attack by insurgents in Borno State. Osun governor demands justice after alleged police misconduct as Osun governor demands justice after alleged police misconduct. Kenya Human Rights Commission raises alarm over rising cases of abduction. We'll bring you the details shortly. News Central now begins this hour with security matters. The Defense Headquarters has confirmed the Boko Haram IPSWAP attack on troops in Gubio LGA, Borno State. According to Major General Edward Buba, 5 soldiers were killed, 10 wounded, and 4 remain missing. Troops eliminated several terrorists and recovered weapons, though the enemy destroyed equipment, including vehicles and an excavator. Reinforcement, including air support, were deployed to pursue the attackers. Despite the losses, the military vowed to continue fighting terrorism and securing the nation. Borno Governor Babagana Zulum expressed condolence to the armed forces and families of the fallen soldiers, calling the attack a reminder of Boko Haram's brutality. In a related development, a group of suspected Boko Haram terrorists have launched another attack on Kareto, a nearby border community with Niger and Chad Republic in Borno State earlier in the day, just days after a previous attack on the military camp in the area. Sources from the community said the military successfully repelled the attack, preventing any further harm to the residents of Kareto. The incident has once again raised concerns about the ongoing threats posed by the terrorist group in the region. This is as the Borno State government has since issued a statement commiserating with the armed forces and families of the victims. Although there is still no official confirmation of the number of casualties, feelers from local sources say about 20 members of the armed forces were killed. A source from Kareto community who pleaded not to be named said the community is now calm. And staying with security matters, the Director General of the National Center for the Control of Small Arms and Light Weapons, DIG Johnson Kokumo, retired, has reaffirmed the agency's commitment to curbing the spread of illegal arms in Nigeria. Speaking during a visit to the Southwest Zonal Office in Ado-Ekiti, DIG Kokumo emphasized the role of the NCCSALW Act 2024, which empowers the agency to combat small arms proliferation. He highlighted the center's collaboration with security agencies, citing the interception of 844 weapons at Onne Port as an example. Southwest Coordinator Ben Akinlade noted successful community sensitization efforts, urging citizens to report illegal arms and emphasizing the dangers of such live weapons in society. And now to discuss this, we are joined by a security expert, Inkotaria Ikpalibo. Kotari, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. So I'm going to go straight to it and ask, what possible impact has the proliferation of small arms and light weapons had on Nigeria's security landscape, and how critical is the role of the NCCSALW in addressing this issue?
The impact has been very devastating. Of course, without the proliferation of arms, there would not be insurgency. As a matter of fact, crime and criminality will not thrive. Kidnapping will not thrive. It is a weapon at the disposal of the criminal that empowers him to perpetrate crime. So the proliferation of arms within the country has caused a lot of mayhem in the country.
SALW Act 2024 will be in providing the legal framework necessary to combat the spread.
Yes, it has. You know, the NCCSALW was actually established in 2021, but it was like a toothless bulldog without any legal framework to prosecute. With the enactment of the law in 2024, the center now has the legal framework to prosecute offenders. So it will, in no small measure, minimize the proliferation of arms in the country.
Challenges now. What challenges might the organization face when they're trying to collaborate with other security agencies to try and intercept and maybe control illegal weapons? How can these challenges be overcome?
Well, I foresee interagency rivalry, and I also foresee, of course, that can be explained because the agency or the center is relatively new. Like we said, it was established in 2021. And then also the issue of corruption cannot be ruled out. And then the bureaucratic bottleneck associated with getting clearances, from the other security agencies for such cooperation and collaboration are some of the challenges that the center would face going forward. And to overcome these challenges, the agency should, as a matter of urgency, engage in very aggressive integration activities with existing agencies. They need to go out to them and look at areas of collaboration, look at areas of cooperation, and then let the other agencies know that their role or their input is crucial to the success of the agency and, as a matter of fact, to Nigeria as a whole.
See rivalries, and that kind of like stuck out like a sore thumb. And I'm wondering exactly why this is such a thing in Nigeria with with the need of this kind of an agency. So how exactly can that particular instance be tackled when it comes to rivalries between agencies that perhaps have an overlap of duties regarding these monitoring of small arms?
Well, over the years, prior to this time, I think the Department of State Security was saddled with the responsibility of mitigating against the proliferation of arms in Nigeria. Now, they've been playing that role successfully to an extent, and then suddenly there's a new center saddled with that responsibility. So to an extent, there will be that tussle for superiority. There will be that tussle there will be the tendency to let the new center know that we have been here, we have been doing it, and we've been doing it very well. So you can't rule out that rivalry at the initial stage. It, however, depends on the leadership skills and capabilities of the coordinator of the center to carry the other agencies along.
Now, 844 small weapons intercepted at Onne port. What does this tell us about the scale of arms trafficking in Nigeria?
Well, it tells us that the volume of arms trafficking is massive. If such 884 would be intercepted at just one port, then it shows that, and that's at the legal entry point of Nigeria. Now we have over 1,000 porous borders, land borders, marine borders. And so if there's an interception of that volume at a licensed, authorized border, then you can imagine what will be happening at the porous borders that are not manned or that are not being controlled. So it's common knowledge, it's in the public domain that there are lots of arms at the disposal of individuals and groups, particularly non-state actors. And the volume is alarming, it's massive, and it's high time the agency swings into action to curb whatever excesses that is here.
Well, security expert Nkotaria Ipilibo, thank you very much, sir, for joining us this afternoon and giving your expert view on the situation. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Now time for a break. When we return, Appropriation Act President Tinubu seeks National Assembly approval to borrow 1 trillion naira. We'll have the details for you when you join us after. You're welcome back. As we move away from security matters, The Senate is expected to approve the $2.2 billion loan request of President Bola Tinubu today, Wednesday. That's 1.77 trillion naira. The request submitted by the president is part of the external borrowing plan outlined for implementation the 28.7 trillion naira 2024 budget. The president's request was presented to the Senate and the House of Representatives through 3 separate letters, where he also urged lawmakers to consider the passage of the medium-term expenditure framework for 2025 to 2027, the fiscal strategy paper, and amendments to the bill establishing the National Social Investment Program. Now, according to Nairametrics, not less than 6 loan projects have been approved, and they include loans for power, $750 million, women empowerment, $500 million, girls' education, $700 million, renewable energy, $750 million, economic stabilization reforms, $1.5 billion, and resource mobilization reforms at $750 million, according to findings by Nairametrics. Also, the World Bank may approve 4 loan projects totaling $2 billion for Nigeria this year. If approved, Nigeria will have secured a total of $4.25 billion in loans from the bank this year alone, and a cumulative $6.95 billion under the administration of President Bola Tinubu. And now, to discuss this, we are joined by Dr. Samson Simon, Chief Economist, ARKK Economics and Limited. Thank you very much for joining us, sir. Good to have you here for the afternoon.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon, viewers.
Good. Now, let's start by asking, Nigeria is seeking an additional 1.7 trillion naira in external borrowing. So given the country's current economic challenges, what are your concerns about the move?
Well, it's actually a necessity. I wouldn't blame the president or the government for wanting to borrow more, because if you look at the reason for going out to borrow $2.209 billion is to fund the deficit of the 2024 budget. And if you look at the performance of the budget so far, it tends to be underperforming, particularly when it comes to total expenditure. We're doing way below expectation. So there's a need to borrow money. If the money will be used judiciously, if these loans will be directed towards tackling the infrastructural problems that Nigeria has, I think it's not a bad thing. But my fear is that it may end up being used for the current expenditure. It may end up being used to pay back all loans that we borrowed, to service the loans that we have collected before now. That's the sad reality, because when they projected for this year, we ended up using the entire revenue for the current expenditure non-debt and for servicing debts. So that's the great fear. But if the money will be used well and it will be used for infrastructure, then I think there's no reason for one to be afraid of anything. Because when you pay for a capital project, the project should be able to pay for themselves, pay both the principal and the interest. So that's the good thing about it. But I'm afraid that that's not likely going to be the case.
So jumping on your fears now, could it potentially jeopardize the country's long-term fiscal sustainability? Is that what your fears are?
Of course, it would jeopardize Nigeria's long-term fiscal sustainability. We're already talking about in 18 months, this current government has borrowed equivalent of 50 trillion, inherited 87. So it's not really good. The fiscal space is already limited. If you look at our debt servicing, is almost consuming the entire revenue. So we're just creating problems for ourselves, and it's likely going to get worse with debt servicing. The ideal debt servicing for a budget should be, as recommended by the World Bank, is 22.5% of your revenue. We're using a third, we're even projecting, like 2025 budget, a third of the projected revenue, a third of the budget is meant for debt servicing. And as we're borrowing some more, it might get, according to projections, is going to even exceed that to around 40% of our revenue over the budget, not even revenue of the budget. So that's not really good. We're getting ourselves into trouble that it might not be easy for us to come out of.
So the money is almost here. Considering past experience, do you think that there are sufficient safeguards being put in place to ensure that, like you said, that these monies don't go into servicing previous debts and perhaps maybe other effects that aren't really supposed to be what they're meant for?
Well, if you ask those people concerned, that's what they claim. That's what they claimed in the past. But the truth is that there's nothing different that we're doing now compared to what we were doing before. So it's the same old story. And it's just so sad that we don't seem to have learned lessons. The current government was bragging about bringing down debt service compared to the last government. Sadly, they are going into the same trap, because even the reduction in the debt service is because we increased the debt stock. It's at the detriment of the debt stock. It ballooned so that we could have lower debt service to revenue ratio. But with the rate at which they are borrowing, they are aggressively borrowing. Anything borrowable, they are ready to borrow. I think that's not really good. We are not helping matters. We're still trading waters. We're still doing the same thing and expecting a different result. And we know what Albert Einstein called that.
Now, what about Nigeria's foreign exchange reserves and also the credit worthiness when it comes to our international standing with lenders and financial institutions?
For our foreign exchange reserves, we seem to be doing one thing that is undeniable is that the current government has done very well when it comes to building up our reserves, when it comes to shoring up our reserves. But that has not really translated to anything better for the Nigerian people. Why do the government is what we have people? So if you have bigger reserves and that is not translating but naira, right, living standards, is basically tomorrow. So there's a problem with that. I know it's a good thing. I'm not discrediting the fact that they have done well building of our reserves. It's a good thing. But we need it to be translated to real things for the average Nigerian. Then in terms of our credit worthiness, we're not doing really good when it comes to credit ratings. Check anyone, whether it's Fitch or Standard & Poor's or any other credit rating agency. I'm not doing really good. We are basically at junk status, and that's why we have to go extra mile and be willing to give as much interest as possible for people to really buy our bonds. So it's not really good, and we're really compounding our problems by giving interest rates that by giving interest rates that we know we will struggle to pay back. And that's what is affecting our debt services.
Well, Dr. Sampson, I want to say thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Thank you indeed.
Thank you for having me.
Now, a bill to amend the Constitution and provide for diaspora voting has scaled second reading in the House of Representatives on Wednesday. The bill, co-sponsored by Speaker Abbas Tajuddin and Sadiq Abdullahi, seeks to amend the 2022 Electoral Act and provide opportunities for Nigerians in the diaspora to vote. The bill was passed for second reading in July and had been referred to the Committee on Electoral Matters for further legislative action. However, after scaling the second reading on Tuesday, it has been referred to the Constitution Amendment Committee for further legislative action. And now, Government Ekpemukulu, also known as Tumpolo, has alleged that powerful individuals behind oil theft in the country are currently angry at him for exposing their shady deals. Tumpolo, who also alleged constant threats to his life, made the allegation at his hometown in Okporosa in Baramutu Kingdom during a visit by the members of the Nigerian Bar Association. According to him, a few days ago, some naval personnel had attacked operatives of the Tantita Security Service Nigeria Limited, a private outfit hired by the federal government to protect oil and gas infrastructure in some areas in the Niger Delta region, while an arrest of some suspected oil thieves was ongoing along the Port Harcourt creeks. Tumpolo called for synergy between the Navy and other security outfits. He expressed worry that efforts to checkmate crude oil theft were being sabotaged in some quarters. In the meantime, Governor Monday Okpewolo of Edo State has suspended all market unions and associations in Edo State with immediate effect. The governor has also ordered the police and other security agencies in the state to arrest defaulting leaders of the various suspended unions and associations without any delay. The decision of the governor was contained in a communication notice issued by the Secretary to State Government Umar Musa Ihilo. The governor said the decision was informed by the disturbing activities of market unions in the state. He said reports abound that the executives of the unions and associations either outrightly prevent farmers from disposing of the wares directly to consumers at the markets, or arbitrarily fix prices of staple foods at the detriment of the low-income earners in the state. Now, in Benue State, the government has approved a minimum wage of 75,000 naira for workers in the state. The governor, Hyacinth Alia, made this known after meeting with representatives of organized labor in Makurdi, the state capital. He says that payments of the remaining 3 months' arrears being owed to workers will commence from January next year. In response to the chairman of the Nigeria Labour Congress in the state commended the efforts, saying that the increase will improve the well-being of workers in the state.
We had said we would take care of 5 months of your arrears. I know we had taken care of 2 months and 3 months are remaining. With this increase, what we intend to do is we would spread this into January. And I think it would make a lot of common sense. Since I was even the first governor that, declared our intention to do this willingly, but is doing it kind of 1-2 months later. Your 75,000 minimum wage is beginning this month.
As far as the civil service was concerned, before your emergence, we've had a series of problems in the state. But since you came, no civil servant in Benue State has received salaries beyond 23rd of every month. And as a result of this, it has placed us on a good foot that will be able to plan, even though the resources became very small because of the introduction of the removal of fuel subsidy. We want to tell you today, Your Excellency, that the workers of Benue State are proud of you.
And now, a few days after the declaration of Lucky Aiyedatiwa of Ondo State as the winner of the last Saturday's governorship elections, the candidate of People's Democratic Party has rejected the results of the elections. Ajayi, who said he has been studying and examining the elections results across the state, disclosed that he would be heading to the tribunal to seek justice. The former deputy governor said he kept silent since the announcement of the results to enable him to investigate what he termed contents of criminality prosecuted by both the APC and the INEC. Ajayi said the investigation uncovered many actions undertaken to compromise the electoral will of the people. Speaking in a statement through his special advisor Ayo Fadaka, Ajayi said democracy could not thrive in an environment where unabated criminality was perpetrated in the prosecution of an election by INEC. Osun State Governor Ademola Adeleke says the Inspector General of Police has ordered the arrest and prosecution of Moses Loho, head of the State Anti-Kidnapping Squad, and his team for attempted murder. Governor Adeleke's spokesperson Olawale Rashid confirmed the action followed a meeting with the State Police Commissioner. Loho allegedly shot Transport Management System Chairman Wakil Alowonle during a domestic dispute, leaving him on life support. Police claimed Alowonle was resisting arrest after a pistol was found in his car. The state government also called the incident suspected murder. Loho and his team have been transferred to Abuja as investigations continue. Governor Adeleke vows to ensure justice is served. And protesters in Osogbo have blocked the Aragbe Park Expressway, disrupting traffic flow. The demonstration follows the alleged shooting of Wakil Nuruddin Alowonle, chairman of the Osun State Transport Management Systems, by the police anti-kidnapping squad. Eyewitnesses report that commercial transportation has been halted, with only a few private vehicles allowed through. The state government claims Alawonle was shot in custody after a domestic issue a day after his arrest for alleged possession of a police pistol and ammunition. Protesters are calling for justice as tensions rise. Authorities have yet to intervene, with calls for police presence to prevent further escalation. In a major step toward tackling climate change and reducing greenhouse gas emissions, environmental experts are setting sight on decarbonizing the transport sector. This initiative aims to cut down the country's carbon footprint while fostering sustainable economic growth. News Central's correspondent Bettina Nwele has the details.
The transport sector in Nigeria has long been one of the largest contributors to carbon emissions in the country. With over 20 million vehicles on the road, the environmental impact has become a significant concern for both the government and climate advocates. To address decarbonization in the transport sector, experts at a side event at the Nigerian Pavilion in COP29 say that a switch from fuels to CNG to electric vehicles, EVs, would yield improvements to public transportation systems.
Consumption of the fuel is the major cause of the climate change in the world. So the world will now say, stop using fuel. Let's go on renewable energy. Let's think of alternatives so that you and me can breathe. Those are brothers and sisters from Niger Delta and virtually everywhere who don't have good air to inhale. The air is polluted, and no one will come to do the amendments for us. It's we that are supposed to do it, and the time is now.
While this initiative has received praise from environmental groups, some challenges remain. The high cost of electric vehicles and the lack of widespread charging infrastructure are key hurdles that will need to be addressed. Experts also highlight the need for substantial investments in renewable energy sources to ensure that the electricity used to charge EVs is clean and sustainable.
If Nigeria puts its resources together, both government and private, we can actually leapfrog technology. We can be the powerhouse of Africa in terms of e-mobility. If you look at the numbers today, it's quite alarming. Over 20 million cars in Nigeria polluting every day. We provide 40% of the emissions, the pollutions in West Africa, and about 25% in Africa as a whole. And if you look at it, for example, the largest polluting sector is the transportation sector, and we're 200 million people. In 30 years, by 2050, we are projected to be, under less than 30 years, we're projected to be about 500 million people. So imagine the number of cars. Therefore, Nigeria must, at this stage, begin to look at alternatives. And the best alternative is electric vehicles. You can export it, and the way the technology is for electric vehicles, you can convert it into cars, you can convert it into drones, planes, ships, boats, so many things. Anything that moves, it can be electric.
Nigeria's ambitious efforts to decarbonize its transport sector will require collaboration between government, industry, and citizens. As the country navigates this green transition, the hope is that it will not only help reduce emissions, but also set an example for other nations in Africa and beyond. In Azerbaijan, for News Central, I am Bettina Nwele.
To the continuous fuel crisis and its skyrocketing price, the Nigerian government introduced the Compressed Natural Gas Initiative. The government said this is to reduce the hardship of the people and move the automotive sector to cleaner energy. Our correspondent Adebola Adediwa takes a closer look.
In June 2023, the average petrol price in Nigeria reached 532 naira per litre, a drastic increase of 208% from the preceding year. Following series of fuel scarcity this year, the present pump price stands at an average of 1,025 naira.
Last year, I used to have a fill-up of between 12,000 and 15,000. And this year, my fill-up is above 40,000.
In a bid to ease the burden of high price of petrol and also transition Nigerian vehicles to cleaner energy, the government introduced CNG initiative, compressed natural gas in May 2023, but listed approved centers September 2024. But how well have people received this initiative?
For me, I don't want to take that risk. Let me be managing what I know for now, other than to venture into such an unknown cause. At the end of the day, the regret will be very, very, very massive. So I don't want to.
I would really like to wait for when they bring it on board, and I've seen samples of people who have experimented on it, so that I'll know the outcome and at that time, my decision can be made. But for now, I insist I will stay on the one we are in the petrol one now.
Mama repo 65,000 every day. Go prolite. Àwọn èrò gan ogun náà ń kanra torí pé kí ni owó mọ́tò tí wọ́n jù. Àwọn náà tafẹ́ gbọ́n náà epo ta fi repo almost something a day. But wọ́n gas nísìn mọ̀ pé gas ò lè tó yẹn.
With the campaign for adoption of CNG, there are concerns bordering on safety, but experts believe those fears are exaggerated.
Natural gas is still the safest. It is safer than petrol, safer than even the gas used at home. The gas at home is even more dangerous, more volatile, sorry, let me not use that word, more volatile than this gas. What happened in Benin is a very sorry case where some people think that they can weld the tank. The technology for CNG tanks is such that it is seamless. There is no welded part on it.
We do it with a certified federal government center, then you are rest assured of the materials that they are using. You do a walk-around check on a daily basis. Move around the vehicle, check the cylinder area, try out to perceive smell. So the moment you are perceiving smell, so that means there is leakage. Then when you are feeling the gas, it's not advisable to stay inside the vehicle while you are feeling the gas.
It appears there's a need for continuous awareness campaigns to demonstrate the advantages of converting to CNG and possibly flexible payment options to accommodate every spectrum of the society. In Lagos for News Central, Adebola Adeduba.
Coming up, Kenya Human Rights Commission raises alarm over rising cases of abductions. We'll bring you the details after the break. Welcome back. We now head to the east of the continent, where the Kenyan National Commission on Human Rights has warned of a return to the dark days of the country's history. At a press conference in Nairobi, Commission Vice Chair Raymond Nyeris told reporters that rising cases of abductions and enforced disappearances are an affront to human rights tenets that the country ascribes to. He added that urgent action is required to protect the gains that the country's forefathers and mothers fought for.
The rising cases of abductions and enforced disappearances are an affront to human rights tenets that our country ascribes to. We continue to witness and record the cruel, degrading, inhuman treatment of persons taken against their will. The daring happenings recorded on videos and photographs are some even displaying civilian and security agent number plates, are rapidly taking the country back to the dark days of our history. The Commission has documented 1,376 arbitrary arrests, as well as 610 cases of injuries from June 18 to November 2024. These injuries were sustained in the course of the demonstrations and ranged from deep fractures, bullet wounds, soft tissue injuries, and inhalation of tear gas.
And now outside the African continent, the United Kingdom has experienced its first taste of winter on Wednesday, with patches of ice covering parts of northern England, Wales and the Midlands. It brought snow days and caused major travel disruptions, making it difficult for thousands of passengers to get about. Now, meanwhile, several other warnings for snow and ice have been enforced across the UK, with the Met Office warning of power cuts, vehicles could be stranded and rural areas could be cut off. On Tuesday, more than 200 school closures were reported, in addition to travel disruptions for many commuters in Aberdeenshire, after the stagecoach bus toppled on its side in icy conditions. For more on this, I'm joined by international correspondent Afia Hagen. Afia, you're welcome. Thank you very much. Please do tell us what the latest is on the cold snap in the UK. And could you help us with the name of that? I think I might have messed that up just a bit.
I think you were talking about Aberdeenshire, which is in the north of Scotland, and there was an accident there where a bus overturned on a main highway. There was no injuries and no deaths reported, and that has now been cleared. But the cold snap continues, the cold weather continues. Now, around this time of year, we expect temperatures between 7 and 11 degrees Celsius. At the moment, it is 0 degrees Celsius where I'm standing here in London, and that has caused the first amber cold health alert of the season. Now, that's a health alert that's issued by the UK Health Security Agency that covers all of England, some parts of Scotland and Wales, and that is enforced till 6 p.m. on Saturday. And basically what that does is warn that there could be significant impacts across health and social care services. And that means there's a potential for the rise in death, particularly amongst older people or people who are more vulnerable, people who have chronic illnesses. So basically we can expect hospitals to be impacted, we can expect services around care to be impacted as well. Now, the Met Office still has the yellow warning out for ice and snow across the country at the moment. These are mostly enforced in Scotland, but in London we have a severe ice warning in place as well. And we can expect the snow to continue falling this evening, up to 10 centimetres of snow expected across the hills and the Highlands until 8 o'clock tomorrow evening.
And how have communities up and down the country been impacted by the snow and ice?
Well, there's still quite widespread school closures across some parts of the country. Up to 200 schools remain closed, and that's partly because school buildings are inaccessible or teachers cannot get to the school buildings as well. People are being advised to check in on their neighbours. Remember, I said there has been that health alert issue, so people are advising others to check on particularly their elderly neighbours. And this comes at a time here in the United Kingdom where the government has stopped the means-tested winter fuel top-up payment. Now, that's something that lots of people would have budgeted for, pensioners would have budgeted for, because they are the ones that get it. And this cold snap has come quite early. So it could be that people that are more vulnerable, who aren't now getting that winter fuel payment and now have this early cold snap, are perhaps not using their heating. So it could lead to deaths, up and down the country. And so people are being advised to check in on their elderly neighbours. Like I said, schools are closed. There's a lot of transport difficulties as well. National Rail warning that up to 30% of their rail services will be cancelled. People being advised to be careful when they're on icy pavement, and cyclists advised not to cycle on pavements and to cycle on gritted roads.
Afia, I'm not sure if it's early or if it's late. Did it begin ahead of time, or is it later than usual? And how long is it expected to last?
Well, this is quite early on in the season to get snow. Sometimes we don't have snow here in the UK until February, and it's only mid-November. So this is quite early on in the season for us to have such a severe cold snap. Now, this is expected to continue up into the weekend. So we can have temperatures actually dropping, especially here in London tomorrow, and staying cold into Friday, but back into double digits around 14 to 15 degrees, which is above average. But the problem with that is that could bring the first named storm of the season. There's a low pressure is moving in from the east, and that with it is bringing heavy rain and heavy winds, so much so it could swell into the first named storm of the season. So after the snow and the cold, we could be in for storms.
Well, thank you very much, Afia, and please do keep warm. Thank you.
I'll try.
And now let's take a short break. When we get back, there's more coming your way. That was short. Business now. In 2023, Nigeria's total foreign trade reached 71.88 million, or rather trillion naira, marking a 37.2% increase from the 52.38 trillion naira reported by the National Bureau of Statistics in 2022. The country achieved a modest trade surplus of approximately 45 billion naira, with import totaling 35.917 trillion naira and exports at 35.962 trillion naira. When examining trade values with different global economic regions, Asia slightly surpassed Europe, while the Americas ranked third. During a discussion on Business Edge, Oladipo Ajayi, head of fixed income and FX at Chapel Hill Denham Securities, shared insight on the factors driving the increase, noting that while economic challenges have typically hindered exports more than imports, the current balance appears more even.
Throughout the year, we saw Naira actually depreciating further, even to the end of the year, around 990 Naira. These are some of the things that actually pushed the value upside, because when you look at it from this perspective, imagine at the beginning of the year you actually had a trade of $1 billion. At the beginning of last year, it will be about $450 billion. But at the end of last year, the same dollar value, but different Naira valuation. So at the end of the year, it would be about $990 billion. So at the end of the day, we would have seen it as a huge and massive.
And now sports. Former Super Falcons striker and assistant coach Maureen Madu has called on the Inspector General of Police Kayode Egbetokun to take over the case of alleged excessive use of force on her and players of her football academy in Anambra State. Madu, who made an appearance on News Central's flagship show In the Game, revealed that officers from the Anti-Cult Unit Zone 13, Upo, allegedly stormed her academy, assaulted her players, and destroyed their phones. The incident unfolded after a disgruntled parent, one Mr. Uchenna Onyekunife, accused Madu of serious crimes, including child trafficking, despite having voluntarily registered his daughter at the academy. Madu, a four-time Women's Africa Cup of Nations winner and two-time Olympian, says she's lost confidence in the local police and demands accountability for what she describes as a blatant abuse of power.
Entered inside guest camp and told me to follow them. I said, follow you to where? What did I do? They overpowered me and handcuffed me on my back. Any of my guest players that asked what happened, I think for somebody like me that have done a lot for the country, and I've already done a lot to give back to the society, I want the AIG to...
And that's all at this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories. 5 soldiers killed in another attack by insurgents in Borno State. And Ogun governor demands justice after alleged police misconduct, as Osun governor demands justice after alleged police misconduct. Kenyan Human Rights Commission raises alarm over rising cases of abductions. Now, do remember that you can watch News Central on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and of course on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. My name is Mazino Appeal.